What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Bears Over Beers. And I'm Khari Thompson, delighted to be hosting this podcast for the very first time. Came on here a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our season preview episode. Kind of accidentally screwed up the stream. If you were watching at the very end there, and it just randomly cut out while Bill Zimmerman was on getting ready to talk and do his thing. That was my fault. I actually did that. So we're going to not screw it up this time. Or at least that's the hope. And I'm here with my guy, Jacob Infante. What's going on, my man?
I'm doing good. I mean, like as good as I can after watching the Bears get, kind of humiliated in prime time. But
Yeah.
I mean,
you'd think that you would think our skin would be calloused enough against that.
Yeah.
Like we've been getting abused in prime time for years now.
Oh, I mean, it's a rite of passage at this point. Like at least one game in prime time has to be just absolute suckage. So it's tough. It's tough out here. Still of optimism for the future, but I mean, just watching that was watching that game wasn't easy.
I mean, look, the defense is good. Give it up for the defense. The defense is good. Okay, before we look back and kind of close our lament for the week, I had to know what you're drinking today, sir. Bust it out.
Yeah. Here we go. So I've never had this before. It's a George Killian's Irish Red.
Oh, bro, I knew about these back in the day.
Really?
I feel like that was more popular when I was coming up.
Really?
Yeah.
Shoot.
I mean, I forgot that you're like 12.
Yeah. No.
I'm literally like 10 years older than you. But no, like they used to have the commercials going on back in the day for Killian's. I haven't seen or heard much buzz about Killian's in a while.
Yeah, no, this is literally I went to the store to, pick something out. I'm like, I've never had this before. I've never even heard of Killian's. So I don't know. I guess the marketing team kind of fell off or whatever, but yeah, this is what I'm thinking. I already opened it. So, the viewers don't have to go through and watch me struggle and, like a jackass, trying to open with a can opener. But yeah, no.
Honestly, some of those can openers are a little bit nefarious. Like,
honestly.
So I went ahead and I'm going with the tall bottle type. I got me a Jack's Abbey blood orange. This was my drink of the summer. So we got a bar right down the way. So if anybody's watched much How I Met Your Mother, so this bar is called Eugene O'Neill's. I always affectionately call it McLaren's. And basically this was the one that they would have on tap all the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack this open. Let's go. I deserve one of these. Okay? Literally, I finished putting my 4.5-year-old daughter down. I'm talking like 8 minutes ago. 8 minutes ago, she finally fell asleep. But I went and ran upstairs, me and my busted knee. So I haven't told you this story. I gashed my knee open 2 Saturdays ago playing basketball.
Dude.
Hit it on the basketball stanchion. It was uncovered. So I got 7 stitches. So I'm able to limp run now.
Okay.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, it's progress, but dang, you're a trooper. You're a trooper. Like you've got, like just in the last 10 minutes, like you've done more things impressive than I've done in my entire life. So I mean, kudos to you. I couldn't go through that. If I had a kid and couldn't fall asleep and then I had to run my way up with a busted knee, I'd probably just curl up into a ball and cry, and then no one would see me again. But
I tell you what, I have the outrageous stubbornness of my grandmother. Love you, Luz Perez. You're the best. But yeah, I will just do an unnecessary amount of things just to prove that I can do them. It really makes no sense. But you know what? I am happy to be here with you.
Oh yeah.
And look, we're gonna turn the page on week 2. We kind of hinted about it like at the beginning of this, but just give me your final thoughts on what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it comes down to, like, obviously, I think the big story should be the offensive line. I think most Bears fans, like rationally know that, all right, the biggest issue here is the offensive line currently, at least from a personnel perspective. Some people are trying to spin it into, Caleb's a bust, whatever. You can't tell that after 2 games.
No.
Especially, like at the quarterback position in particular. you need to be thorough with it. You need to take your time, and 2 games isn't going to be enough to make or break someone's NFL career. It's just not. But I think that so much of what happened was the offensive line just couldn't pass protect. They couldn't pick up on blitzes. They couldn't, for one thing or another, I don't think they understood how to, pass off their assignments. If they had anyone delayed coming that they didn't realize, like an off-ball linebacker or stunts or anything like that, they didn't know who to pass off to who. They didn't know who to pick up. And even when there were one-on-one situations, that Texans defensive line, was pretty good, and they had their way. So that's just the big thing I keep coming back to is I going back and watching that game a second time was like that was a chore for me. Like usually I enjoy like going back and watching like let's see who did well, who struggled a little bit. But it was difficult. So I'm curious what your thoughts are, but yeah, that's where my mindset is right now. Is just the offensive line needs to get it together.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of years ago, I was a beat reporter for the New England Patriots, and I'm out here in Boston. I'm located out here, and I still follow them quite a bit. But I was there during the Matt Patricia year, when they decided they were just going to turn that over to him, and he was going to be the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. And predictably, that failed. And I remember that year just noticing like they were trying to switch to more outside zone and really changing a lot of things about their pass protection. And it looked like a mess because it just wasn't what the Patriots were used to doing. What I find weird about the Bears, like when you're talking about that, is it's the same offensive line coach.
Yeah.
It's the same dude. And it's a bunch of the same guys. Literally, the center changed. That's it. Everybody else was there last year. And yeah, I mean, injuries and such like that, they, still have to gel a little bit. But I feel like it just doesn't make sense to me that they would be having this much trouble with basic stuff. It's like, is it really that big of a deal for Nate Davis to have missed as much of training camp, to the fact that like he has forgotten how to pass things off, even though he's a veteran in the league and he's been in the league for a while. He's played a lot of football. So I don't fully understand that. I think the quarterback thing, to kind of summarize my thoughts quickly on it, I think there's still some rawness from the Justin Fields experience. And I think there was this idea that, we got Caleb. He's the number 1 overall pick. People talking about him as a generational prospect. He's just going to come in and it's instantly going to be better. And they're going to be tearing it up. And there you go. Right. And so I think we got to chill.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's really ultimately what we got to do here is relax, because it's a process when it comes to rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You got to see the stuff in live action, right? You've got to go through the live bullets, as Cam Newton used to say when I asked him about it. And just because, Justin Fields got a raw deal or whatever it is, and maybe you feel mad about the way he was treated, and it's like, Caleb should just come in and outperform him. That's not how this works. Okay. All the rookie quarterbacks playing right now have been kind of bad.
Yeah.
I will say this about not about Justin Fields. I'll say this about Caleb Williams, though. I think his flaws, the things that he struggled with, are much easier to deal with. Much easier to deal with. And so I think he just has to, I think he's got to slow it down a little bit. Don't be a hero and just hit the throws that you know how to hit. He can hit these throws. We've seen him do that. It's not new. So I think he's going to be fine. It's just going to take a couple of weeks. And the offensive line will hopefully gel as well. I will say, to close the chapter on that, because we're going to talk about Caleb Williams a little bit more here, but I do want to say the defense was really good. And I was pleasantly surprised at how much trouble they gave that Texans offense, when I thought they were probably going to put up closer to 30 points in that game. And really, they made it tough on the Texans, especially in the second half. That was encouraging.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's especially more impressive when you go back, like even watching like in the moment, like CJ Stroud was incredibly accurate. I think just in terms of the ball placement, in terms of the decisions he made with the ball, he was surgical. And, I know some people with the whole CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams, like the interaction they have that people are, talking about or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, CJ Stroud, he's acting like a 10-year guy, a year 10 quarterback. But that's what he looks like out there right now with the accuracy and the intelligence. And I think the fact that you can hold that offense to fewer than 20 points, I think that says a lot, because Stroud played well, but you look at, you got some pressure up front. I think the defensive line has been a pleasant surprise so far the first 2 weeks. Jalen Johnson looked good. I think, some of the linebackers made some good plays. There were some, good play in the secondary. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson had a little bit of a mixed bag there, but at the same time, you're looking at it from a whole defensive unit. They did really well against one of the top offenses in the NFL. And I think that that's something to be proud of. That's something to celebrate. And they didn't get the luck of, we can intercept someone. It's not, Will Levis.
Kyler Gordon almost.
So close.
Which hell of a play. I mean, that was nasty. And I've been talking up Kyler Gordon. So
yeah,
I appreciate him doing that.
No, he's good. I feel pretty good about the cornerback situation. Even with Tyreek having a bit of a down game, he was really good in week 1. Really good in the second half of last year. So yeah, I mean, there are issues with, the Bears that need to be addressed, and I'm sure that'll come in time, but the defense is in good shape. And we'll get into week 3 against the Colts later, I'm sure, but just to, I'm optimistic to see what this group can do, because I think there's some real opportunity there to make some big plays.
Yeah, and you brought up the CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams thing.
Yeah,
I feel like it's like, why are y'all making it weird?
Yeah,
I like, he's acting like he's a 10-year vet. I mean, listen, some guys are just more mature than other guys, and the other part of this is he just went through this.
Yeah,
he just went through this. And he obviously excelled at it, but I think there's just a matter of like, hey man, you're going to be good at this. The other thing is like, I feel like people were trying to make a little bit too much out of Caleb's reaction to it and the way that he was acting. Like, yeah, maybe it was like I don't know that it was as deep as, oh, CJ Stroud, why are you saying this to me? You know what I think it was is that the dude just lost his first NFL game.
Yeah,
and he was probably not feeling particularly good about the way that he played, throwing the 2 interceptions. He was probably mad.
Yeah,
and then he's got to go and do the whole meet and greet and shake hands and stuff like that. I bet you he probably just didn't want to do that. Now, is he going to learn that people are going to be watching everything that you do under a microscope? Yeah, he's going to learn that. But I think this moment, really, people are trying to make way too much of it. And I think that's always a thing where it's like, oh yeah, people really want to see like how you interact after the game when you're shaking somebody's hand in a win or a loss or whatever. I'm just like, dog, just relax. That's kind of my last thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm with you. I think I'd look at it from the perspective of Caleb is extremely competitive, and he wears his emotion on his sleeve. And some people don't necessarily like that, which I, for one, don't have a problem with. I look at it as he's someone who wants to win. He's someone who wants to play well. When he doesn't play well, he gets upset. Maybe not necessarily. It's like, oh, it's not fair, but more so like, hey, I need to be better. And that's, not to say I'm Caleb Williams. I'm certainly not. But I can understand that mindset of, hey, I messed up on something. I want to be better. I need to be better. And, not being too happy about it. I mean, it's not going to be like, oh, well, I thought we did pretty good, because they didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah. And as much as, some people hate on it, it's like, oh, he didn't want to talk to CJ Stroud. I would like anybody, like in any line of work, just if somebody, beat them out on, closing a deal at work, or someone beat them out in, or made them look inferior, less than in like a, if you're a media member in like a press conference or something, you asked a dumb question or something like that, and then have someone point a bunch of cameras in your face and then see how you react to it.
It's like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing though, is that we are perhaps we see athletes more in that light of just like, this guy's probably kind of pissed off right now because XYZ thing happened, or was embarrassing. But I think that not enough of us think about it in those terms, where it's just kind of like, we have just accepted that it's natural, and we will say things like, well, that's what they signed up for, was to have the cameras in their face all the time. But it's like, if you really stop to think about it, it's like, it's kind of wild that we're just like, yes, you should have cameras in your face at all times, and you should answer everything exactly the way that I want you to answer it. You should behave exactly the way that I want you to behave all the time, or else I got a problem with you. And I think that part is a little bit much. But we've been talking a little bit about Caleb Williams here, and I want to continue that part of the conversation in a slightly different way now. So we have now seen 2 games of Caleb Williams, one of which he failed to get to 100 passing yards, but they won the game. And then he didn't turn the ball over in that game, and they won. And then a game where it was, I think, 156 passing yards, 2 interceptions, still looking for that first touchdown pass. I want to just briefly throw in a quote from Bears legend Brian Hoyer. I was actually covering the training camp when he was there with Cutler. That was fun times. I actually talked with him about that, and he was like, "Oh yeah," it's like somebody actually remembers that. He mentioned something to the effect of giving this advice to Mac Jones a couple of years ago, where he was like, "Look, when you're in college and you play your best game, the best game you could possibly play, your team is almost always going to win, unless the other guy is also going off, right? But if you play your best game, your team's probably going to win. And if you don't, then your team is going to lose. But in the NFL, just because you played awesome, that does not guarantee your team is going to win. Yeah. Sometimes you win by not screwing up, by not turning the ball over, by just matriculating the ball down the field and let the chips lie where they may. And I feel like you saw that. Neither one of these 2 games of Caleb Williams were amazing, but the one in which he didn't turn the ball over was the one they won, right? Yeah. And I'm sure he would tell you, I'll take that one over this one. But I kind of want to go to that point where it's like, have your expectations changed at all for what Caleb Williams will be this season or down the line, based on what you've seen so far?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I'd say that, looking at it from a passing yards perspective, I think it's pretty clear. I know some people were talking about, he's gonna break the single season passing record.
We gotta stop with this with the rookies, man. We gotta stop this.
Yeah.
Every time we're just like, this one is gonna break the rookie passing yard. How about we just let them play the game, man?
Exactly. And I think it's one thing where, you look at the Bears rookie passing records where it's like, it's like 1,500 yards in a season, which is from like the 1930s or something like that, where it's like, how is that still a record? But he'll be the first quarterback to throw for 4,000 passing yards right out of the gate. One, I think we're seeing pretty quickly that, passing yards, ultimately they're going down in the NFL because, defenses are adjusting to it. They're neutralizing the deep ball and they're making you check down and beat them underneath.
Yeah. Real quick. I did a stat on that. And it's actually crazy. Like starting in 2020, the passing yard average from the first week was 272 yards.
Oh, Jesus.
It was wild. There were like, I don't know, like 8 300-yard games. And I think I want to say like 22 of the quarterbacks who started were over 200 yards.
Yeah.
And it's gone down by about 30 yards a game.
Wow.
Since then. until week 1 this year was 185 passing yards average across the board.
That's crazy.
It is. And exactly to your point, which I will let you continue with, but I just had to share those numbers because they drove me nuts.
No, that's wild. I mean, I think that really puts into perspective just how the game is changing and how defenses are adjusting and how, therefore offenses are adjusting too. So, to that point, it's not realistic to say, oh, he's going to hit 4,000 passing yards right out of the gate. There might not be 10 quarterbacks in the NFL who top 4,000 passing yards between, the yardage per game going down, between potential injuries, stuff like that. So I will say, the expectation though is, oh, you're bringing in Caleb Williams. He's going to be an upgrade over Justin Fields. Not only that, but, obviously the long-term piece to that too, the financial flexibility, the superior upside, him being younger, all that stuff. But the expectation of, oh, he's going to be better than Justin was last year. So far, I mean, it's certainly debatable. I mean, I'd say there are certain aspects of playing the quarterback position that Caleb is already better than Justin Fields at. I think from a pre-snap diagnosis perspective, I think from, the ability to make full field reads, I think he's already better than Fields. But at the same time, he's not as athletic as Fields. He's not as strong as Fields. And every once in a while, Fields would have 2, 3, 4 plays a game where he just absolutely takes over with his pure athletic ability. Caleb hasn't been able to do that yet. So I think that ultimately, the expectation should be that, if you're making a change at quarterback, this should be an upgrade for 2024 because you're bringing in all these guys, in like a win now sort of situation. But for him to say, oh, he's going to be a 4,000-yard passer, he's going to be, shoe-in rookie of the year, I wouldn't rule that out still. But
yeah, it's 2 games.
It's 2 games. You never know. But I think for him to be, oh, he's going to be a superstar right out of the gate, I don't think that's fair. I also didn't think he was this generational prospect necessarily. And I'll say that as someone, obviously I was, pretty vocally pro Caleb in the whole, Bears Civil War thing.
Yeah.
And I viewed him very highly, and I still do, coming out of USC, one of the better quarterbacks to enter the NFL draft, I believe, in the 21st century. But since I started formally grading prospects in 2017, I had Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow both ahead of Caleb Williams. Now, granted, that's it. So everybody else, 2017, 18, most everyone else from, all those other classes, I still had Caleb above. And that includes, some pretty valuable, pretty talented quarterbacks, like a Justin Herbert, a CJ Stroud, guys I had high grades on who ended up suiting up well. And then guys I missed on, your Zach Wilsons, we'll see on Justin Fields, but anyway, it's a matter of expectation. And I think that for him to be the superstar right out of the gate, it's not fair necessarily. And people keep comparing him to CJ Stroud in his year. That's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. And again, that was one of those, I already knew that was going to be a mistake people were going to make.
Yeah.
And again, we all write about it. It's you never know. It could happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing that always struck me about CJ Stroud in college was that this dude never, ever, ever wanted to run. Under no circumstances did that guy want to run the football. It's not like he's completely unathletic and can't do it. He's just no, I want to throw the ball. That's just it. And he was just going to play that sort of just pocket passer, distributor style, even though he has the capability to be more. And then when he had to do it against Georgia, he's like, I can throw on the Superman cape if I want to, need to. I think that Superman cape is Caleb's always got it on and he's got to learn how to loosen the strap a little bit or tuck it in, or something like that, and take it easy. I find it really interesting to watch, the whole Fields thing right now, because with the Steelers, right? So they're 2-0.
Yeah.
I think there are certain things that Fields looks better and more comfortable at, but it's still a lot of the same. There's still some throws you're like, why are you not throwing that, dude? Or like the throwing motion might be a little quicker, but it's still not bam, it's out, right? Yeah. And there's still a couple times where you're like, stop running out the side of the pocket, bro. Like, just stay in there.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, with Caleb Williams, I think it's literally just about getting the throws down and just settling, because I feel like there are a couple times where it's like you can set your feet and throw that ball. I know you can throw it on the run without perfect footwork, but in this case, you can set your feet. You've got time to do that. I think it's just literally about the reps, and then we're gonna start to see that. But I think, somebody asked in the chat, if he was going to hit, kind of the projection of 3,500 yards. No, I don't think so. Right. When you have two games like what he's had, where he has like 250 or like 240 total passing yards through two games, like he's got to really up his average, right? To kind of get to that point. But the thing is, even if he only throws for 3,200 yards in his rookie year, that doesn't mean it's a failure.
No.
Because I feel like we get in this mode with quarterback play where it's like either you threw for 300 yards and or you threw for 3 touchdowns in order for you to be good. Otherwise, you had a crappy game. And it's just like that's not true. And I think that with this team, with the kind of defense that they have, I think that there's a little bit of wiggle room there. We are going to get into the defensive part a little bit later, but really quickly, I want to ask you about DJ Moore.
Yeah.
And we saw him very visibly frustrated on the sidelines and on the field, kind of mouthing like, come on, this dude needs to get me the football.
Yeah.
He apologized for that a little bit. He made some comments. It's just like, regretting that he showed the kind of emotion that he did or did so publicly, and said, I would do that differently. Do you view that as a problem at all, even in the short term, with DJ Moore and kind of getting them on the same page?
I mean, I'm not too worried about the visibly frustrated part. I feel like there's an aspect of, it's a new wide receiver quarterback pairing. So naturally, that can take a little bit more time. They didn't play together a ton in the preseason. So a lot of that is, it's just practice reps, but now they're actually going out and playing NFL speed and strength defenses. So, I mean, I feel like that's the type of thing that's going to come in time. As far as the frustrations go, I mean, I'd be personally surprised if that develops into anything down the line. I mean, by all accounts, DJ and Caleb have a good relationship. I mean, that's what it seems like for, this entire offseason that we've seen. So I'm not super worried about it. I'm curious as to what, you think too, because I look at it as, he was open every once in a while and Caleb missed him. Yeah. If I were a receiver, I'd be pretty frustrated too. Cause it's like, I'm doing everything right, but this one thing that's not in my control isn't going my way. So I don't blame him at all for being frustrated. And again, I think it just comes down to, we have these players under a microscope. Every single action they have is, dissected by the public. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. I mean, just because someone's frustrated in one moment doesn't necessarily mean, DJ hates Caleb or anything like that. I just think it's a matter of, one or two plays didn't go necessarily DJ's way. He's disappointed by it, and that's that. Again, if this is a problem down the line and it turns out there's more to it, then, I'll change my tune. But I'm not worried about it in the slightest right now.
I'm not worried about it right now either. I mean, clearly the guy, he wanted to win the football game and he was open on a couple of occasions, and it's just like, give me this ball, we make a big play, and maybe we have a better chance to win. I think if y'all remember, because people were saying he was never acting like this with Justin Fields. I mean, if we remember, I want to say it was week 2 when they played against Tampa in Tampa. He was caught like on a hot mic, like when somebody was just like, they don't know how to use you, man. He's like, tell me about it. Right. And I think there's that element of the guy just he wants to win very badly. And sometimes when you want to win, you're that passionate about it. Your body language isn't as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I've had teammates that have been like that.
Yeah.
I mean, in our workplaces, we've been in situations like that. Obviously, it's just, as you said, more magnified in football because everybody is on camera all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's one of those deals where it's like, see that? Like he hates Caleb. You wanted to keep Justin Fields. We should have done that. But I do think it's something I would like him to be a bit more mindful of going forward, especially since you are playing with a rookie. You know what I mean? And once they start making plays, we're going to be good.
Yeah.
They are going to be good. And I think our guy Brewhaw7 over here in the chat, I mean, he's kind of right about this. If everybody was just like, man, this is fine, you know, like we don't care, that would probably be more concerning.
Yeah.
It's a primetime game. They wanted to win the damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, and especially too, when you're so close, like that's another thing too, where you're within a one possession, you know, one score away for most of the game. Like you're in it, like one drive, you score a touchdown, you're in the lead. I mean, the Bears lost by 6. I mean, it's in those close games, especially too, and in those primetime games, you know, the emotions heightened, the you know, the drama's heightened essentially, and you know, you want to win those games, and if you don't, you know, then you're going to be disappointed in it.
You know what? And look, if you know, we were feeling that disappointed over watching them, though, I think, you know, for me, my heart is kind of stone within me watching the Bears lose in prime time, because it just is what it is. I think that if we're that disappointed, you got to imagine how disappointed they were. And, you know, I was listening to Caleb Williams talk about it and just like, yeah, I imagine having to get up there and just be like, yeah, I screwed up a couple times and we lost. And now I got to sit with that for the next couple of days. But the best thing is that there's another game. You'll be able to put that behind you and we move on. And, you know, we ball. Now, I want to take a quick break while we're here to talk about Underdog Fantasy. It is the greatest time of year. Again, football's back, and it's here to stay until February. Thank goodness. I mean, I was dying in the middle of that without it. And look, over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, like touchdowns, passing yards, more. That is honestly so much easier than so many of the other things that, you know, some of the other gambling ones that I've used. Like I was definitely big on, you know, some other things, but I love that personally. I have not used, or rather, I should say, I have not won any money from Underdog yet, but I'm gonna keep on trying. Because I mean, listen, you got to keep on the hustle for sure. Yeah. I think for this week, I'm probably going to be going under on a bunch of people's passing yards, particularly the Chicago Bears, because I feel like all of those estimates are too high given where we are right now. So I'm gonna be going under on Underdog Fantasy. So listen, making picks on Underdog straightforward, signing up's even easier. Just head on over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code CITY, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code CITY, to claim your new customer special of a free pick, and your deposit offer must be 18 or older. and present in a state where underdog fantasy operates. Terms are void in Colorado. Very interesting. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org or 1-800-NEXT-STEP. All right. So let's talk about something that's more positive, my man. Something that'll make us feel a little bit better. This defense is really good.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I think the pass rush, I think there's still a little bit of that. Like where's the pass rush opposite Montez Sweat coming from consistently? But look, man, I saw Austin Booker getting in there and harassing CJ Stroud a little bit on Sunday night. Like,
yeah,
I just feel really good about this unit from top to bottom. They are what was promised.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that a lot of the praise belongs to the interior defensive line. I mean, I think you're looking at two dudes at defensive tackle, Andrew Billings and Javon Dexter. Dexter's made the flashier plays. He's got 2 sacks, and as a defensive tackle, 2 sacks in 2 games, that's some pretty impressive stuff. Keep that up. I mean, that's a really tough pace to keep. That's 17 sacks in the season. That's absurd. But even then, even if it's just once every other week, that's tremendous production at the defensive tackle position. And you're also looking at Andrew Billings, one of the highest graded, from a PFF perspective, one of the highest graded defensive tackles, not just as a pass rusher, but in general. And I think that Andrew Billings last year didn't get enough credit for what he brought as a pass rusher. I mean, you look at the big bodies like, oh, he's a nose tackle, he's a run stuffer. I actually think he was a little better as a pass rusher last year. And I think so far this year, I think he's been a little bit better as a pass rusher too. I mean, the quickness you're seeing off the line of scrimmage from him, the activity with his hands, the quickness that he has for such a big dude. I mean, it's really impressive stuff. And I know defensive tackle was a position, had some question marks. It's like, oh, is Andrew Billings last year maybe had a career year? Is he going to build off that? Is Javon Dexter going to make the jump in year 2? So far, and, knock on wood for this, but I'm thinking that, yeah, there you go. We're safe now. But, yeah, looking at those 2 guys now, I mean, I feel a lot better about the defensive tackle position than I did entering the season. And obviously there's still a lot of football left to play, but both of those guys looking good has me feeling a lot better about the defense because if you go back to it, Matt Eberflus, not just Matt Eberflus, but a lot of variations of the same defensive scheme that we're working with, a lot of them have had very successful defensive tackles who can rush the passer. I mean, going back to Tony Dungy, Warren Sapp, Lovie Smith, you had Tommy Harris, Matt Eberflus had DeForest Buckner. You've had what's his face, Jason Hatcher with Rod Marinelli. I mean, you've got some high quality pass rushing 3 techniques, and you've got Dexter who can rush as a 3-tech or a 1-tech, Billings who can do either, even though he's more of a true nose or like a 1 shade sort of deal. But either way, I mean, you've got 2 defensive tackles who can get after the passer, and I think that's a very valuable trait. And as far as the edge goes, I mean, Montez Sweat did better last week than he did week 1. I'm sure the sacks will come with him because he's too good not to get to the passer at some point. But yeah, I mean, out of, all this negativity that's going around in, the Bears, atmosphere right now, I feel really good about the defensive line in particular.
Real quick, you want to hear a trip? So on Pro Football Focus, and you go to defensive interior players, where does Andrew Billings rank in terms of pass rush grade?
Oh, shoot. I went back to look at this. I tweeted something about Andrew Billings and like his PFF grades and stuff like that. It's pretty high.
He is 4th.
Oh,
85.7 pass rush grade behind only Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, and Roy Lopez from the Arizona Cardinals. Random. But right next to Vita Vea, like that's the company he's keeping right now atop. He's that good. And I always find him so interesting because I feel like his stance is like not too forward leaning, right?
Yeah.
But he gets his hand off the ground so fast and gets it into you and sheds blocks. He's powerful, man. I love watching him go to work.
Oh, yeah.
It really kind of reminds me of like almost like discount Akeem Hicks. Like in terms of just like that in, you know, put him inside and he can just get after you kind of thing. With Dexter, I'm very intrigued by his usage so far because last year he was almost exclusively a 3 technique.
Yeah.
This year he's mostly played in the B gap, you know, as a, you know, 3 technique type player, but the splits are a lot more even than they were. So like last year he played like, you know, 374 snaps, 328 of them were as a 3 tech. Or rather I should yeah, so it's last year. But this year, so he's had 46 in the B gap, 10 in the A gap, and he's actually had 26 over the tackle. So he's been around a little bit. I
Yeah.
love being able to use him in a more versatile way, and I actually think he's much more dangerous inside because that power of his. And I think that when he actually gets off the ball, the motor and the athleticism are pretty special in terms of going against guards and centers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of it too, because I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to put this. Looking at Dexter, you know, they even had him as an edge rusher in some instances. I mean,
yeah,
I think you've got the, you know, the length there, the athleticism that he has for that size. I mean, obviously he's no Montez Sweat running like a 4.4 whatever off the edge, but he's still,
I mean, that's a mutant level thing.
Yeah, like he's, you know, I think from a pure physical measurement perspective, Montez Sweat is the freakiest defender the Bears have had since Julius Peppers probably, and then Brian Urlacher to that point. But from a length, from a speed, from a strength perspective. But anyway, I think there's definitely a lot to like with Dexter. And I still think, you know, there's still some room for improvement. But at the same time, I think he's looked better to start the year than he was last year as a rookie, which is all you can ask for. And the fact that, you know, he's finishing plays is huge. And you've got Andrew Billings, who's generating all this pressure on a consistent basis. And, you know, defenses or offenses rather, I'm sure more and more over time are going to have to start accounting for him and seeing, okay, this guy can really get after the pass rusher. I mean, he's like 6'1", if that, you know, 310, 15 pounds. And, you know, he's rushing the passer like that. I mean, you know, I think some people kind of underestimate that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's really just a lot of optimism with this defensive line. And even with Dexter, you know, sometimes him being so tall, the pad level's not quite there yet, but I mean, the quickness is there. I think his hand usage has gotten better. And, you know, the fact that he's finishing on plays now, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think once it gets going up front, you feel good about pretty much everything happening on the back end.
Yeah.
Right. Tyreek Stevenson is like your weakest link at cornerback. And I think he's decent.
Yeah.
So far he's been decent. Kyler Gordon's been an absolute hair on fire maniac so far, which I love that for him because for him he's literally just about staying on the field. Because when he's on the field, he's just all over the place. There was Brian Baldinger did a breakdown where he showed like 7 different clips where he's like, he's over here, now he's doing this, and now he's doing like that. That's what he's here for.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when he was drafted, I remember, you know, because I was at the combine and I remembered chatting with him and watching some of his stuff and just being like, man, would it be nice if he fell? Like, I don't know that it's going to happen. I feel like he might come off the board kind of early in the second, maybe too early for where the Bears are going to be. And when they got him, I was like, yes. And I know a lot of people were saying, no, we need a receiver there. We need a receiver there. I'm just like, this guy is a gangster.
Yeah.
And now he's getting a chance to really show that forth in year 3.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jalen Johnson speaks for itself, right? I mean, all pro first team, one of the best corners in the league, and he's getting better all the time. I think that's the best part. And then Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard have been holding it down. Like, you can't. I don't know. It's like as a team, you're thinking, okay, I guess I got to attack Tyreek, and he's a little menace too, and he's got the ball skills to make you pay if you make a mistake. So it's really just about whatever's happening up front, and just making sure that you keep everything in front of you with the defensive line, the linebackers covering things, in the short area of the field, which they've been doing a good job of that. And then once you get home, you're good to go. There was a play, one of the big pressures they had was like Tremaine Edmonds dropped down inside. I was like, yes, let's go. More of that, please. I think the willingness to play around on defense with those looks, like they've just got so much flexibility. And I think they're going to give opposing offenses a lot of hell. And hopefully they're going to do that to the Indianapolis Colts this week. I'm almost certain that they will. My first thoughts on this, Anthony Richardson is so fun. I think that he has the more of the makings of a good quarterback that I think people I think give him credit for. He can make tight window anticipation throws when he lines it all up. I think a lot of it is just like, can he literally line it all up from a technique standpoint? He's obviously going to give you problems with his legs, and his strength, but also just like, I'm still thinking about that throw that he made in week 1.
Yeah.
Literally doesn't make sense. It's
surreal.
He has the talent to be ungodly. But I think right now it's a matter of make him hold the ball and corral him. I mean, it's going to be a lot like you played against Justin Fields for 3 years, right? Think about that, except, a little bigger and stronger, and, can also chuck the ball 70 yards while slipping to the turf.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's going to be interesting with Richardson, because I feel like one thing the Bears have done a really good job with is, going back to, the too high deal, going back to, limiting the deep ball. I think, a lot of how Stroud was able to move the ball down the field was intermediate passes across the middle. It's not so much deep passes along the sideline. And looking at it, I feel very comfortable with the safety duo the Bears have. I feel comfortable with the corners the Bears have. And I think, obviously, Anthony Richardson's an incredible athlete, phenomenal arm. He's shown some really, really impressive flashes with the football. Obviously, he's big. Obviously, he's strong. Obviously, he's fast. I feel like there are going to be some instances where he doesn't necessarily make the right decisions with the football. And knowing the ball hawking mentality that especially Tyreek Stevenson has, I think that this is a good opportunity for him to bounce back, because you've got Jalen Johnson on the outside. He's, a true shutdown corner. Teams go out of their way to avoid him at this point. And, a lot of the targets then go Tyreek Stevenson's way. And I think naturally, just because of the way he plays and the system, there's sometimes he'll allow too many catches, but he'll also make more plays on the ball than the average cornerback.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be a big opportunity for Tyreek to potentially get a second pick in the first 3 weeks of the season. We talked about Kyler Gordon. I believe he's a top 10 nickel corner in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty damn good. I don't think enough Bears fans give him credit for just how good he is. So I feel good about this matchup. I think obviously there are questions with the offense. I want to see what's going to happen there. But, DeForest Buckner being out with an injury, that's a big break for the Bears. I mean, obviously, you don't never like to be like, oh, I wish so-and-so gets hurt. But, given the circumstances, the Bears, it's favorable not to have DeForest Buckner out there. So I feel good. Some people might not, because the offense didn't look good at all against the Texans. But with the way the defense is playing, I can't look at the Colts offense and be like, okay, yeah, this offense is better than the Texans offense. Like, I think the Bears defense will do even better this week or this time around against Indianapolis. But, it's going to lie in the hands of the offense. If they can even perform, at a below average level, that's an upgrade from last week. So, I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll have to see what happens there. But from a defensive perspective, I feel really confident about Chicago there.
Yeah. I think you were mentioning kind of the Matt Eberflus model and sort of where he comes from when it comes to defense.
Yeah.
And this too high sort of revolution that's taking away the big plays and forcing you to just get the ball down the field and have 10, 11, 12 play drives. That's something that the most experienced quarterbacks in the league will just be like, okay, fine, I'll do that. But I think for younger quarterbacks that are used to, I want to push the ball down the field. I want to hold it a little longer. I want to take chances. I want to take shots. That's where you get in trouble, as long as your pass rush is getting home, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think right now, Anthony Richardson is at that point where he's still like, he wants to make plays. He wants to make splash plays. And he's going to have to learn. And I think it is just unfortunate, right? Because he got hurt last year and he didn't get to see his whole rookie year through.
Yeah.
That he's got to learn that when you face a team like this, you got to hit the easy stuff. The easy stuff's got to come easy. And right now, I'm not sure the easy stuff is coming easily enough for him. But we'll see, right? Yeah. I think that's more of a question for not this Sunday. I think they're gonna do fine against him on Sunday. I think when it comes to the offense, we've talked a lot about, after watching the film, just finding easy things for Caleb Williams, whether it's just RPOs, just quick slant RPOs, stuff that he ran a lot in college. Obviously, the horizontal game, the bubble screens, you don't want to live in that world all the time.
Yeah.
But if you start off the game with something quick where he sees the ball go into a guy's hands and he's just like, okay, fine, we're cool. I saw one go in, we picked up a couple of yards on it, and now we can get to the other stuff. And the thing is, you're gonna have to make it quick. You've got to make it quick now. You might have a little bit more success against the Colts than maybe a defense you'll face later on. But the way the offensive line is playing, teams are going to start throwing games at them all over the place.
Yeah.
Because they know they can't do anything about it. So I think you are going to have to really operate the quick game. I mean, you got to go empty and just have Caleb getting out of his hands. You want to run stick. You want to run, kind of, short stuff, more slants, whatever it is, right? Dragon concepts where you got the slant and the out, slant flat or whatever, just stuff that gets the ball out of his hands, because he can get it out of his hands quickly and he can do it accurately. And even if you got to dink him and dunk him to death, that's still valuable experience for Caleb Williams. So I want to see them work on getting the quick game going with him. And I want to see them run the ball better, because I think that in an ideal world, that's how this all works. You run the ball well. It's not run to set up the pass, but you run to get them off your back. Yeah. You run to wear them down. And then you slow that pass rush down a little bit, so then you can start throwing the football to win games. So I just don't think they're there right now. If you want to talk about expectations, I think we have to recalibrate that part. They're not winning games right now by throwing the football. They've got to run the football to win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. And especially, I think, on the quick game part of it, going to those, those first two drives, I want to say, Caleb Williams did a really good job of getting the ball out quickly. Shane Waldron relied a little bit heavier on that, on setting up the quick game, some of those slants, some of those passes across the middle of the field, an out route being relatively quick. I think the early on in that game, the Bears scripted their offensive start very well. Now it's just going to be a matter of, can they consistently get the ball out quickly? if it's a copycat league, the Colts are going to watch the tape against the Texans and be like, hey, it's let's just blitz the crap out of Chicago, and that's what's going to win us the game. Now you need to prove that you can adjust to that, and adjusting to that is getting the ball out quickly. And ironically enough, I feel like some people, there's the narrative, oh, Caleb needs to get the ball out quicker. I think that's just people who saw him at USC and haven't really watched the full games, because Caleb can get the ball out quickly. Honestly, I'd say through the first 2 weeks, I'd say that's the one thing that he's doing the best right now, is when he gets the opportunity to get the ball out quickly, he can find the open man. He's a quick processor. He's a smart dude. I just think that, again, going back to, when he has that Superman cape on, when he needs those longer developing plays, he's like, all right, I have to make the big play here. But when you don't allow him to think of it and you just get the ball out quickly, he's very good at that. I think he's proven that against the Texans, against the Titans. And I think if the Colts, if they take that approach against the Colts, then I certainly think he'll do well in that regard. So, and then the run game, I mean, there's just, I could go on about the run game. I don't know. It's just very difficult to watch at this point. And yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift certainly could be playing better. I feel like, some of this definitely does lie on him. Maybe not necessarily shedding as many tackles or evading as many defenders as, they probably thought he would be at this point. But still, when the interior offensive line gets blown up all the time, it's very difficult to, have any open running lanes to work with. And I think that's been something I'm interested in seeing, is there isn't, and at least from what I've seen, there isn't necessarily a ton of like wide zone necessarily. And even then, even in some of these instances where you have, you're winning purely in the trenches, if you have a subpar offensive line, you can kind of mask that a little bit by generating movement up front, just by the scheme, having the offensive lineman on the move, making it, life difficult on the defensive lineman. Then it becomes DeAndre Swift or the rest of the running backs, capabilities to, figure out, all right, I'm going to vary my tempo here while I'm running along the sideline. When am I going to cut? When am I going to figure, how to do all that? But still, I think that could help the offensive line as well. If you, get the blockers on the move, kind of mask some of those deficiencies that they might have in a pure one-on-one vacuum. I don't know. That's just more spitballing on my end, but I do think, I do think there are ways around it. Obviously, it comes down also to know your assignments and do your assignments. But even if, you don't have faith in those offensive linemen getting the job done, like there are still some things you can do to kind of mask that if your unit isn't up to par.
Yeah. And I think the other part is, I think some of their best runs of the game came from when they were under center. And I think that's another part of this. I feel like I want to see them get a bit more downhill in the run game. You're talking about varying the tempo when you get to the line of scrimmage. It's so much easier as a running back in my mind, right? I was a running back in the day, to press the line of scrimmage when you've got a running start right away, right? So you are already getting moving instead of having to wait for the quarterback to, in shotgun, catch the ball. And then, you false step a lot, I feel like, in those situations when you're a running back. I know I did it a lot more often than I wanted to. But it's just so much better, I think, to just take a pivot and go and put that out there. But you're already at, 70% by the time you get the handoff. And then you're pressing the line of scrimmage right there. And then you're ready to just stick your foot in the ground and get downfield. And I think on early downs, I want to see more of that from them. And I wonder if it wouldn't also help some of these running lanes from an offensive line standpoint as well, and help DeAndre Swift look a little bit quicker. To your point with the Caleb getting the ball out of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Caleb Williams has a time to throw of 2.81, which is unheard of in Chicago over the past couple of years. We are not used to having a quarterback that gets the ball out of his hands in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
Now, again, I always want to try to do this. I have to look into it a little bit more. How many scrambles have inflated the time, because Caleb Williams has definitely had some very long scrambles, some very, very long play extensions back there. And that will obviously inflate some of the numbers. But I remember like Luke Kuechly was talking about, he's got to get the ball out of his hands quicker. He's getting the ball out of his hands just fine. It's just the fact that, he's getting jumped anyway. So some of that you can't necessarily help. But to the extent that you can, I think it's, really, I think go empty, work the quick game, and get them something fast, spread it out a little bit, in those passing situations. But I think on early downs, I want to see them get under center and run the damn football. I mean, that's people might be thinking about like, that's not how you win in today's NFL. I think actually in like literally this moment's NFL, I think that is how you win, because passing ain't doing jack for nobody. Right now, running the football is actually low key kind of back.
Yeah.
Before we head out, you got any final thoughts heading into this weekend, whether it's the Bears or NFL more generally?
Yeah, I've got one quick thought here. Looking at the comments, Billy the Kid said King Infante looking buff AF, and that is that's the ego boost that I needed today. I didn't lift today, but I did stay late at my full-time job, and I played like 25 minutes of ping pong. So it's a bit of a workout. I logged it, it's like 100 calories I burned doing that, whatever. But I appreciate that, Billy the Kid. Thank you. But anyway,
keeping the right arm strong, eh?
Yeah, in more ways than one. But anyway, Lord, see, now I got Khari gone. He's done. He's done.
We gotta be done.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm lucky I've only had one beer in me. If this were, a couple more, this would be a whole nother story. But anyway, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity, not just this game, but the next couple games for the Bears to bounce back. And like I tweeted something about it, but I firmly believe looking at their next couple games, the Colts are 0-2. They've gotten off to a so-so start. The offense, obviously there's promise there. Anthony Richardson's a very talented athlete, a very talented player, but maybe not quite all the way there as a processor quite yet, and can be a little bit reckless with the football. And I don't think that offense is as good as what they have in Houston. I think that could be an opportunity to win, even if it is in Indianapolis. And then you have the Rams, who have been absolutely decimated by the injury bug. I'm not going to go here and say, oh, that's a guaranteed win, because the Rams still have Sean McVay. They still have Matthew Stafford. And with those guys in tow, I think they'll be competitive. But they've lost so much talent on both sides of the football, just to injury. And if there's any time to face the Rams, it's right now and this early in the season. And then you have the Panthers, who let's just say I'm feeling pretty good about the chances of the Bears getting the 33rd pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the way things are looking right now in Carolina. So it's a very winnable stretch of games. And then you have, Washington down the stretch. And then you have, Arizona's looking solid. Maybe that's a little bit more competitive a game than we were expecting, but still, and the Patriots too, again, looking a little bit more competitive, but still, from a pure roster perspective, I think the Bears have superior talent. There's a really good opportunity for Chicago to bounce back, come back from this, pick up a couple wins, and then head into divisional play looking strong. So again, things could go wrong. I'm not saying, they're going to go like 5-0 in their next couple games. Far from it. But a lot of these games seem winnable, and I'm going to keep coming back to it. The defense is looking really good. If the Bears can beat the Titans with a bad offense, if they can be competitive with the Texans, likely a playoff team. They were a playoff team last year. If they can stay competitive with the Texans, then these next couple games are certainly winnable. And if the offense even improves slightly, which shouldn't be a super high bar to clear, then things could be looking good. So I'm not necessarily in the doom or gloom that everybody's at right now. Definitely a bad game against the Texans. I can't even, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But even then, the way the defense is looking and the possibility of the offense getting better, there's a chance. There's a chance that they string together some wins here these next couple of weeks.
Yes, especially if they rediscover how to score touchdowns on offense.
Yeah.
Particularly through the air. That would be great.
Please.
I think my thought is really on the Panther situation with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Being benched, and apparently there are no plans to trade him as yet. But if we're being honest, this is the beginning of the end for him. He's not going to be long for the Panthers at this point. But I think what it really tells me is there's less patience than ever for this rookie quarterback carousel that a lot of teams will just kind of do, where it's like, we're going to take a guy right away and we're going to play him and he's going to be bad. But then we're going to fire the coach and then we're going to bring in a new coach who's going to make him better. And this new coach is like, hey man, I gotta win so I don't get fired.
Yeah.
So Dave Canellis is like, this ain't working. This guy, like he just can't, he's unplayable right now, which is, it's true.
Yeah.
Bryce Young is unplayable right now. It's like there's a part of me, it's like, does he deserve it given what he was brought into? I can understand feeling bad for the guy.
Yeah.
But I think the sad fact is he's not the only guy on the team. There are other guys that are trying to feed their families and they're trying to put stuff on tape and they're trying to have a career in this league. And they're like, how are we going to do that if our quarterback can't play?
Yeah.
And then Will Levis walking off the field and getting absolutely torched by Brian Callahan, first-year head coach. He's just like, I'm a first-year head coach. My quarterback can't be doing this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can't be playing like that. And Billy the Kid, I bet you Canellis was afraid of losing the locker room, because what are you going to do when your quarterback he can't play?
His cheeks.
He's awful, and you're going to keep on putting him out there and having him be awful and having him struggle and bash his head against the wall. He's out there trying as hard as he can, and it's just not working. And and then the other players are seeing this. Yeah. That doesn't help anybody either. So these guys are in impossible situations with these quarterbacks they didn't draft, right? And so I think you're seeing a lot of teams be like, we're not going to have unlimited patience. Okay. It's like, especially like if you weren't mine originally, if I didn't pick you, it's like either you can play or you can't play. Or even, the Pittsburgh Steelers saying goodbye to Kenny Pickett after 2 years. They're just like, sorry, man, this really ain't it, for any variety of reasons. And I do wonder, I did see somebody suggest this. I wonder if we're going to start seeing more teams do true, like, bridge quarterbacks as best they can. If we're going to start seeing teams not do what the Bears did or what the Commanders did, but what the Patriots did with Jacoby Brissett eating the hits over there. And while Drake May gets a chunk of the practice reps, and they try to bring him along that way and try to ease him into action in a way that was a lot more commonplace back in the day. But really in the last 20 years, you don't see top 10 quarterbacks getting redshirted. That's just not a thing that happens anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, Trey Lance and Patrick Mahomes are like the last two dudes that really were like, no, you're not the starter.
Yeah.
Even if you play at some point in the season, you're not the starter.
Exactly.
Right? We don't do that anymore. And I wonder if teams are going to start reconsidering that with the way these rookies are playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. And you look at the last couple of years, I mean, 2023 itself, Bryce Young looks like he might get replaced next year as things stand. There's a chance Will Levis gets replaced next year. Those are, Bryce Young was literally the first overall pick. Will Levis was, the first pick of the second round. And 2022, Kenny Pickett, gone. Desmond Ridder, gone. 2021.
That was just a horrendous draft.
Oh,
but then, since we were going with that, Trevor Lawrence is the only guy in the first round of the 2021 draft who's still on
exactly.
And him and Justin Fields are the only two that are still starting football games.
Yeah, I mean, Mac is, very clearly the backup now in Jacksonville. Trey Lance is very clearly a backup in Dallas. Zach Wilson's very clearly a backup in Denver. It's like he's not
like the emergency quarterback. Like
it's like there's not even a path for them to start unless someone gets hurt. There's no chance that they, the bench the current starter. And yeah, I think that's certainly something that teams are going to have to take note of because there's so many rookies where it's like they're fizzling out and they're just not, they don't get a chance to succeed. So if they're not playing super well right out of the gate, then, give them a little bit of time to develop because we're looking at it now. Baker Mayfield, the Browns moved on from him when he was still on his rookie contract. Now he's with the Buccaneers. He's looking like a solid starting quarterback. Sam Darnold, the Jets moved on from him pretty quickly. He bounced around the league a little bit. Now he's with the Vikings, and granted, it's still very early. He's looking solid. So it's this type of thing. And again, I know
Sam Darnold is now suddenly looking better than he's ever looked in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. And it's crazy because it's, it's not quite like Geno Smith. Oh, I'm breaking out at age 32 or whatever. But it's still Sam Darnold's been around the league for a long time. He's been a backup caliber guy this entire time. And now it's finally clicking. What is it? Year 6, year 7 for him? I mean, it's, it just goes to show that everyone's developmental path is different. So, I guess that's something that teams definitely should be keeping in mind with, some of these rookie quarterbacks. Just be a little bit more patient because they're just rotating through them like crazy and, throwing them in when they're not ready.
Yeah, I think as you think about it, like the more I'm kind of around the way these guys function, it is so rare to find a rookie quarterback who's actually ready to play as a rookie. As you mentioned, CJ Stroud, like there's a reason rookies don't have seasons like that, especially when they start right away. I mean, most rookies are bad. Let's keep it for real. The fact that Caleb Williams is having a bad start to 2024, that is actually not surprising at all. That's historically just what you should expect most of the time. Yeah. And so I think with teams looking at that more, the contract part is the big issue here, right? Because teams want to know by year 3 if this guy is it. Honestly, they usually want to know by year 2 if the guy is it, and then you're just talking numbers through year 3, right? And then you got to know if you got at this point, you're going to be paying Caleb Williams if he's as good as you think he's going to be. You're going to be paying him $60 million or more. Like that's what it's going to be by the time his extension rolls around. That's a huge commitment. So teams want to be able to know that. And there is something to me about, for example, in New England, they're just like, I don't want to play Drake May behind this offensive line. And it's like, how are you going to find out if he can handle it or not? You think he's going to have a good offensive line all the time? Right? Let's see what you can do. Right? It's like you get pressured at quarterback. Yeah. That's going to happen. I want to see how you respond in a non-ideal situation because 80% of the time you are in a non-ideal situation at quarterback.
Yeah.
Every single time there's somebody trying to harm you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't buy that whole, we can't play him because the offensive line is too bad. Well, you shouldn't have taken him number 3 overall then, right? Yeah. If that's kind of how you feel, especially if you're going to make him the backup. If he's actually the backup and he's not the emergency guy, if you don't want to play him, sign another veteran, have him be your number 2 and make sure Drake May never plays. Right. Yeah. I'm going to not get on the soapbox too hard on that, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot because I'm in the area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But look, they've decided they want to play these guys to know what they are about, but there's no fallback option. I think that's the part that's kind of tough. It's like if you have an option to be like, you know what, we don't need to win this year. We want to prioritize this guy's development. Maybe he's not ready to play. I'm not saying this is Caleb Williams, by the way. I think Caleb Williams is fine enough to play football right now.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like if you've got a guy who's like, I'm just not sure how well he translates to the NFL right now, get yourself a veteran. I don't care if he's the number 1 overall pick. Sit him. Do it. Have the courage to do it. A lot of people are going to say, like, no, he's the number 1 overall pick. He needs to be playing. It's like he needs to be playing when he is as ready to succeed as possible.
Yeah.
And I think, somebody like Caleb Williams, I think mentally, in his overall talent, he's a guy that can play in week 1. But if you're talking about like Bo Nix does not need to be playing right now. I'm sorry.
No.
It is, and it's like that's a disservice to me.
Yeah.
Right. Bryce Young did not need to be playing on that horrible ass team all last year. I'm sorry. Yeah. He did not need to be doing that. And you threw him to the wolves and left him to die.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about like for all the flaws, right? They tried to kill Justin Fields in 2022 and he managed not to die. Yeah. But that's the rarity. Normally you put somebody in that kind of situation, they fail utterly. And I just feel like I'm tired of seeing guys like, look, not everybody's going to succeed in the NFL. And not everybody's going to succeed in the NFL quarterback. It's the hardest position to play for a reason. But man, can we do a little better by these guys?
Exactly.
That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. And yeah, somebody mentioned they tried to redshirt Justin Herbert, but then they stabbed Tyrod Taylor and almost killed him. And then Justin Herbert was like, "Okay, I'm good now." But look, it was the thought that counts. Yeah. All right, y'all, we're gonna peace out. I had a blast doing this with you, Jacob. Can't wait to do it again. We are gonna do it, again throughout the year. And look, man, let's get back on the horse.
Oh yeah. No, I'm stoked. I mean, I had a blast too. I hope, everyone listening enjoyed this as much as we did. But yeah, no, I'm excited for this, man, just to be able to like get in this rhythm here and, we're going to have more opportunities down the line too. So appreciate you for sure. And thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, this is fun because, I think we started interacting around Bears football like 6 years ago or something like that. It was a while back in the day. You hadn't even gotten up out of high school yet.
Yeah,
that was like the craziest thing. Yeah. But it is really fun to be able to do this with you and looking forward to doing it again. We need to get out right on time because now we got somebody in here talking about how we need to play Tyson Bagent over Caleb Williams. We're not going to do that one. No. Have a good night. Peace out, y'all.
See ya.